I received a text message last week, and it said, "I'm devastated by David's post." I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I jumped on and had a look, and the David they're talking about was the pastor that I interned under, David Riley. Some of you might know him, and he lost his 17-year-old daughter to a brain tumor earlier this year, and then he posted that he discovered that he has cancer in multiple places throughout his body, and apparently him and his daughter have the same disorder where their body just can't fight this certain type of cancer, apparently. And so he's just lost his daughter, and now he's unsure of what the future holds for him. And while that's one story, you don't need me to tell you many more to realize that things are messed up. You look at what's going on around, as Carolee mentioned, what's going on around the world, what's going on around maybe your family and your life, and you just think, there's just stuff. You go, God, why is this happening? Why is this taking place? Why are you allowing it? Why don't you do something about it? And I'd say not just people who know God, but people who don't know God, and probably people who even don't follow God. A lot of them still ask this question: why? Why do you let this stuff happen? And we think it's something that's relevant for us. Yes, it is. We think it's something that might be something that kind of we're grappling with in this age. Yes, it is. But it's something that has a question that has arisen over time for so long. Go back to 675 BC, and this guy asked God the same question. He says, "How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you don't listen? Or cry out to you violence, but you don't save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds." We're looking at this series called Underrated, where we're exploring the minor prophets of the Old Testament. And they're not minor because they're not important. They're minor because their books are shorter. And we're exploring them because the messages that they have are just as relevant for the people back in that time as they are for us today. And today we're exploring this guy called Habakkuk. You pronounce it how you like. But in his story, we think he's probably about 10 to 15 years older than Daniel. This is around the 6th to 7th century BC. Habakkuk has witnessed a lot of stuff happen in his nation. In Judah, there was good things happening. Josiah became king, and he's like, "Hey, let's clean up. They discover the law, and he's like, we need to follow this. We need to obey God." So they start putting in all these changes in the nation to clean up their act, to start treating each other well, to start worshiping God. They had the first Passover that they've had in ages, and they're starting to really dial in to what God had called them to do. But then Josiah goes into battle against Egypt. He dies in the battle. They carry his body back to Judah, back to Jerusalem. And with the death of Josiah also dies this desire to follow God. And slowly things start going back to the way they were and disintegrating. And Habakkuk is seeing all this, and he sees violence that people are committing against each other. He sees evilness that people are doing to each other. He sees extortion. He sees fraud. He sees all these things happening, which you could just basically take the news from today and say, oh, that's pretty much what Habakkuk saw. It's not much different. And he sees all of this and he says, why, God, do you let this happen? Why are you letting people hurt each other? Why are you letting this violence, this injustice, this suffering? But not just why are you letting it, but God, why aren't you doing something about it? Why aren't you actually answering the request we have for you to step up and do something about this? And Habakkuk's different to most prophets. Most prophets, God gives them a message for the people. Habakkuk has the message of the people that he's presenting towards God. And so it's kind of backwards. But he does have this conversation that he has with God throughout this book. And basically what he's saying is he's willing to ask the hard questions of God. He's willing to actually do the real talk with God about real problems and real suffering. And he's not just relying on what he's learnt. He's actually questioning all the easy answers he's been told, he's grown up with, he's learnt, and he's saying, all right, I'm gonna take this to you, God, because sometimes those easy answers don't always satisfy. So this book begins, and if you've got your Bibles, I want to invite you to open up to Habakkuk. If you've got the blue Bibles, around page 800, I think 806, 805. But it starts off, and to try and help unpack it, we're going to follow through the storyline. Habakkuk's side is red, God's response is in white below. And it starts off with Habakkuk saying, God, why are you allowing this stuff to happen? Why don't you listen to my pleas, my desperation, that I want you to do something about cancer and violence and shooting and what's going on online and all this stuff? I want you to do something about this, God. And I like this quote. What we learn from Habakkuk's dialogue with God can help us today as we struggle to work out what it means to believe in God's sovereignty, his justice, and his love, and to live as faithful disciples in an unjust world. So yes, this is relevant for the Israelites back in 675 BC, just as much as it is relevant for us today in 2025. So he has this complaint. How long? Why aren't you doing something, God? Why aren't you listening? Why aren't you responding? And it's easy to have this approach with God. It's easy to think, oh, God, look, why don't you do something about all this stuff that I'm experiencing? Or why don't you do all this stuff about this person I love and what they're experiencing? Why don't you step in? Tim Keller has this cool quote. If we know God is good, we can trust his hiddenness. If we know he's good and he doesn't say stuff, we can be kind of like, that's okay. I can deal with that. He's not hiding himself from us for his own pleasure, but for our good. In a world full of pain, the most common question is, why is God not doing something? The Bible's answer is that he is doing something, but it's not what you expect. And so Habakkuk has this request to God, and God responds. And once again, it's not what he expects. Look at verse 5 of chapter 1. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 5. God says, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed, for I'm doing something in your days that you would not believe even if you were told. What is that? I'm raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own. He's taking Habakkuk's complaint. He's saying, yeah, I'm actually doing something about this. I'm raising up a nation that's going to come in and respond to the evil, respond to the sin, respond to the hurt that your nation is doing to each other. I've got a plan that's in action here. The thing that Habakkuk struggles with is like, why them? if you've got this plan to deal with this, why are you going to use them to do it? He's like, we understand that God's ways are not our ways. Isaiah tells us that. We understand that God works differently to the way we work, that he is still good even the way he acts. But Habakkuk sees this and he's like, God, I don't know if this is actually good news. Like, they are nasty. They are no good. You're bringing them to deal with a problem that we have. God's responding. He's actually at work. He's just not answering how Habakkuk thought he should. And so we get to Habakkuk's response to God. And he says, and take note of how he responds to God. Lord, are you not from everlasting? My God, my Holy One, you will never die. You, Lord, have appointed them to execute judgment. You, my rock, have ordained them to punish. It kind of sounds like he's accepting it. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate treacherousness? Why are you silent while the wicked, Babylon, swallow up those more righteous than themselves, Judah? So he's saying, God, okay, so you're going to do something that's great, but you're bringing someone who's worse than us to deal with us. How does that work? How is that okay? I don't know if you've ever asked God to do something. You've prayed and you weren't sure if it was an answer or not, but things changed. And you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't quite what I was asking God. Maybe I need to clarify a bit more next time. But Habakkuk gets this response from God. And now he's saying, God, I want you to do something. I want you to answer. I want to know that you're there, but why are you doing this? Why are you responding this way? So Habakkuk has this question. God says, I'm working, I'm going to send Babylon. Habakkuk goes, what? Babylon? But they are more evil than us. They're terrible. Why are you using them? Why are you sending them? And it's easy in that situation to start going, God, are you actually good? If this is the way you answer my prayer, are you really the God who I thought you were? C.S. Lewis had one of his why God moments. He married a lady by the name of Joy. And at first their marriage was kind of a convenience because she was in England and her visa had run out and she had her two boys with them, and he's like, he really appreciated her and they had this great intellectual relationship. He appreciated her sharp mind, and so he agreed to marry her kind of out of convenience. Soon after that convenient marriage, she was diagnosed with cancer. And it was terminal, it was bone cancer. And they then moved into, instead of a marriage of convenience, they found a pastor who actually married them properly before God. And C.S. Lewis had this much deeper, more meaningful relationship with his wife. She had 1 year of remission, and then it came back. And 3 years after they originally married, she passed away. And in his book, A Grief Observed, he reflects on, it's kind of like a journal that he went through as he was dealing with his wife's passing. And in this book, he talks about how he responded to God and how this impacted his view of God. And when you ask this question, why God, it's really easy to start, there's this risk that we start questioning the character of God as a result. This is what he said. He said, it's not that I am, I think, in much danger of ceasing to believe in God, The real danger is of coming to believe such dreadful things about him. The conclusion I dread is not, so there is no God after all, but so that's what God's really like. Deceive yourself no longer. His concern isn't that he loses belief in God. His concern is that the thoughts and the depths that he's going to are starting to make him think things about God that aren't actually true. And he doesn't want to get into that point where he believes that that's actually who God is. The truth is, God is always at work. He's always at work, always involved, always pressing forward towards his kingdom. But the means by which he chooses to pursue that goal may be as astounding as the destruction of a nation, Judah, or as incomprehensible as the blood dripping from the figure of a man on a cross. His ways are not our ways. The way God works is not the way we work. His thoughts are not our thoughts. And so Habakkuk raises this question of God, why would you not just allow this to happen, but choose to deal with it in this way? And then look at what he does next. At the beginning of chapter 2, after pouring all this stuff out at God and telling God what he thinks and asking all these questions, he says, I will stand at my watch, station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me. He actually is willing to stop and to pause and to wait for God to answer him, which is not always an easy thing to do, is it? He waits and God responds. God says, write down the revelation, make it plain, on tablets that a herald may run with it, for the revelation awaits an appointed time. That revelation is what he said is Babylon is going to do. He said, write this down, put it on the tablets. The word for tablets is the same we have for the Ten Commandments. Put it down there, make it easy so that, and when it says a herald can run with it, that's not metaphor. It probably most likely literally means so that someone can actually grab this information and run and share it with people as they go. Write it down. Tell people this is what's happening. It will actually take place. It speaks of the ends, and it will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. This is going to happen. This is how it's going to happen. I'm telling you so you can be aware of it. So that's where we're up to. But then God goes on. And he says, the enemy is puffed up. Chapter 2, verse 4. His desires are not upright. Talking about Babylon, this country is coming against you. They are not good. They are puffed up. They don't have the right motivations. They don't have the right heart. His desires are not upright. But the righteous person will live by his faithfulness. The righteous will live by faith. So he's saying the Babylonians, yeah, they may not be good people, but you want to be my people? You want to follow me? They don't look to their strength. They don't look to their brutality. They don't look to what they've got. They look to me. They trust in me. They live by faith. They keep their eyes on me. The righteous person lives by their faith in who God is, by what God does, by how he responds. So we've got this. This will happen. Live by faith. And then he actually goes and explains, I'm going to deal with evil. All the problems you saw, all the problems of Babylon, all that stuff, I'm going to deal with it. In chapter 2, verses 6 through to 19, he brings up all these woes, these things which are like, this is going to be bad news for these people. Those who extort, those who get things by unjust gain, those who make others drunk and benefit from that, those who make idols. It's like, all of these, I'm going to deal with that. All the sin that you experience, all the evil that people do, all the stuff that you question as to God, why is this happening? God says, I'm going to deal with that. I'm going to put an end to it. It may not be in the time frame you expect, it may not be in the time frame that you want, but I'm actually going to deal with that. That's my promise to you. I'm going to put an end to all of this. The time frame may not be what you want, but trust that I will actually do it. And to underline the point, the chapter 2 finishes with this. It's kind of like God, it's the mic drop moment of this whole book. Look at what God says. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Temple's not empty. It's not the fact that the lights are on and nobody's home. God hasn't left the building. It's not like there's no one in charge. He said all these things and he said, the Lord is in his holy temple. I am there. I haven't left. And the reminder for us or for you, especially if you're going through something right now and you're like, God, why is this happening? Why is this panning out this way? Why are we experiencing this? Always remember that the King is on the throne. And when the King's on the throne, he's in charge. That doesn't change who he is. Your circumstances don't change who he is. He is good. He is God. He is in control. And it's at this point we reach chapter 3 and Habakkuk responds to what God said. And as he responds, we're actually told that this is a song. Chapter 3 is actually a song that he wrote to be played on stringed instruments. So he writes this song, and I want to give you just a little bit of it. It says, Lord, I've heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day. In our time, make them known. In wrath, remember mercy. And then he goes on, verse 3 all the way down to verse 15. He actually goes on and talks about all the things that God has done in their past. It's like he's going through his journal and he's reading through and he's going, oh yeah, God did this and he rescued us and he saved us and he came down and he took care of the enemy. He did all these things. And he lays them out. He's reminded of them. And I think there's value in what he does there. When was the last time you stopped and actually reflected on how God's worked in your life? When was the last time you paused, maybe got a pen, some paper, and actually wrote down where you had seen God do things in your life, where he'd showed up? Small, big, mighty miracles, little reminders. That's what he does here. And it's important because it helps him reach a place in his relationship with God and in his trust in God that he wasn't at before. Because in verse 16, we're reminded. He says, I heard and my heart pounded. And we think here he's going back to what God had said about the Babylonians. He says, these guys are coming, stuff's going to happen in your life. I'm telling you this now. We're either coming out of something rough, we're going into something rough, we're in the middle of something rough. And God's saying to Habakkuk, I'm with you through that. I'm there. But Habakkuk, he's here and he's going, oh, he's still freaking out. He's scared. My lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept into my bones and my legs had trembled. This guy is still afraid of what's going to happen. He's still freaked out by the idea that these Babylonians are coming. I love Habakkuk because, one, he asks questions of God that are real, but two, he just seems so human. He seems so down to earth. Nothing's changed. Babylon's still coming. The stuff we face is still going to be the stuff we face. The challenge that we're experiencing, the evil that we're suffering, the struggle that we're going through, the stuff we see around the world might still be happening. Externally, there's no difference. But internally, for Habakkuk, something shifted. He's different to how he is at the beginning of the book. There's been a change in him. The feelings of fear are still there, but he's not letting them take the wheel. He's letting faith take the wheel. So he can say, I'll wait patiently for the day of calamity to come. I'll just wait. He's happy to do that. And he goes on. Though the fig tree doesn't bud, there are no grapes in the vines, though the olive crop fails, fields produce no food, there are no sheep in the pen, no cattle in the stalls, there's no medicine that fixes this, the doctors aren't positive, the bank account looks small, I don't know how I'm going to handle this, the struggles are still there, the things still need to get done. Even though it looks pretty dire for Habakkuk. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. Everything's still real. He's still got it. Hasn't gone away. He's still in the middle, in the thick of it, in the deep depths of that valley, but he's saying, well, I'm still going to trust God. I'm still going to rejoice in God, even though all this stuff is happening to me. The Bible doesn't belittle human suffering, human disappointment, but it does add one key word, temporary. What we feel now will not always something that we feel. Our disappointment is a bridge to faith. That's what we see in Habakkuk. He's questioning God. He's asking God, what's going on? Why aren't you doing something? And God responds. He says, I'm doing something. Habakkuk goes, whoa, I wasn't expecting this, God. This is not where I was hoping this would go. And God says, hey, I'm going to deal with stuff. I'm going to be there. I'm going to respond. And through this conversation and these reminders of God's goodness, Habakkuk reaches this point where he can say, all right, okay, I trust you, God. Even though stuff isn't going the way I hope it is, I'm going to trust that you are still good. I'm going to hold on to that through this. I'm not sure what it is that you're questioning God over today. What struggle you've got in front of you, what it is that you're facing, and you're going, why, God, is this happening? Why are you letting this take place? You fill in the blank. Habakkuk's encouragement is, though this is going on, I will rejoice in the Lord. Though this is happening, I'm going to pause. I'm going to be still, and I'm going to acknowledge that you are God. If you said you're going to do things, if you said you're going to make all things new, then I trust that you're going to make all things new. May not be in my lifetime, may not be the way I want, but if you're going to do it, I trust that you're going to do it. Corrie ten Boom said, never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. And the beauty is, we can know God. You can know who he is and what he's like and his character. And if you know who he is, then stepping into the future, not knowing what's coming, stepping that next step in this situation that you're facing, whatever it might be, we can do that trusting that he's still good, that he's still God, that he is still on the throne, and that he's going to carry us through whatever it might be. I invite the team to come up. We're going to sing Still. And as we sing this song, if there's something you want to present to God, if he's prompting you and saying, hey, I want to have a moment with you, can I encourage you not to lean away from that? Just to spend this moment in this song talking to him, responding to him. If you want to sing, sing. If you want to listen, listen. If you want to talk to him, talk to him. But don't let this moment where he's wanting to communicate with you and encourage you, pass by without leaning into him.